Hi, this is Bob Sorrentino from Italian Roots in Genealogy, and I have a very special guest today, Connie Knox from Genealogy TV. So, welcome, Connie. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm delighted to have you because I think you do great work, and it's going to really be an advantage to my listeners, especially those who are just starting out and doing their genealogy research. But before we talk about Genealogy TV, let's talk a little bit about your background and why you got started in genealogy in the first place.
Oh my goodness. I've been doing genealogy since I was a toddler, I think. I don't know about toddler. Well, the earliest memory I have was when I was about 6 years old. I was sitting with my great grandmother and my mother looking at old photographs. And I think that's kind of where it started because I was like, oh, this is cool. My mom's like pointing things out. She's going, these guys are from Denmark and these guys are. And I'm like, oh, and this great grandmother that I was sitting with, this is the only memory I have of her because she died not long after that. But she was born in Denmark. And so then my grandmother, her daughter, was telling me about them coming across the country in a covered wagon. And I was hooked at that point. So that was as a teenager when I was about 15. So that's when I really got into it. I still have the old little spiral notebooks where, bad handwriting and horrible spelling and all that I have from that. So yeah, that's when I got started. And I call myself a lifelong genealogist. I have been doing genealogy ever since. And then along the way, you got to make money. So, and my love is video. And so I went into television broadcasting as a young adult and worked 40 plus years in television broadcasting and ultimately owned a TV station, then sold the TV station and became the manager of that TV station as a CBS affiliate for the last 20 some years of my career. But I started in public broadcasting. So I always say I went from PBS to CBS. And so then when I left broadcasting, I kind of crossed over for a couple of years. I started the YouTube channel because it just made sense, right? I'm a genealogist at heart. I love doing video. I love teaching. I love the education part of it. And it was just a marriage made in heaven. I love this job because I get to take the genealogy side of it and my experience there, and then marry that with what I try to do, good quality video and educational process on the YouTube channel and on the videos for the Academy. So I opened the Academy in March of last year. So actually it's probably like the anniversary right now. I don't really know exactly the date, but it was March of last year. Oh no, this is April. So we're past that. So anyway, that's where I'm at. So I've got the YouTube channel and I've got the Academy now, and things are rocking and rolling. The YouTube channel is doing quite well.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's great. And I didn't start way back when you did, but I grew up the same way. I always liked history. Was one of my better subjects in school. Algebra, not so much. But I used to enjoy sitting down with the old photo album with the black pages in the little corners, and ask my mother who's that and where did they come from. But now your past is interesting because what year was that when they were in the covered wagon?
I don't know. And I've often I think my grandmother liked to embellish stories once in a while.
Well,
So I think what
that's
happened
unusual, right?
was my grandmother immigrated when she was 2 years old. I think that was 1882. And so I think what happened was I believe they came in through New York, and they made their way to Wyoming. So somewhere in there, they had to have gone by covered
Mhm.
wagon or horse or by foot or train to get to Wyoming. And I actually think that they may have done part of that trip by train, because the trains were already coming through Laramie at that time. So I don't know, and then I do know they ended up migrating by car to Long Beach, California.
So now, Do you know why they went to Wyoming? Was it just for land or?
I suspect it was, so they're Danish, this
Yeah.
clan that we're talking about. And I met up through Facebook, and there's a tip for, especially for beginners, is to find a Facebook group for the areas in which you're researching. So in my case, I was on a Danish Facebook group, and I actually ran into a DNA cousin. We actually met and then found each other again on Facebook. But this DNA cousin, born and raised in Denmark, he's like a fourth or fifth cousin of mine. And I asked him, because I said, why were people leaving Denmark? And he explained, and as in a lot of the countries, the European countries and all of those countries, a lot of them, what the standard was is that the oldest son inherited the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my ancestors were younger, like the great grandfather that ultimately married my great grandmother that we were talking about. He migrated because of land. He was the youngest son, and he was not, land is running out at this time in history. And, they can't really subdivide a small farm amongst 4 boys because they're not going to have enough land to farm. So, the younger sons often are the ones that immigrated to the United States. And so that's exactly what I believe happened in my family. And so, the stories of the land of riches and ultimate unlimited amount of land, right? And so at that time, the great frontier was being explored, and lots of, land available, and some of it really fertile, rich land. And these guys, a lot of them knew how to farm. Some of them were, shoemakers. We needed everything, right? They needed iron workers, and they needed everybody. So it was an opportunity for anybody to make their way to America. So that's kind of my Danish ancestry side of the family.
Yeah, and that's a great story because, when you think of immigration to the U.S., Danish doesn't pop into you. It's not the first country that pops into your mind.
Well, especially for you, since you're doing Italian ancestry, right? But it just depends. I've got a whole other line from England, and so it just kind of depends. We've got Scottish and Irish and all kinds of folks coming over, from different lands, and African Americans coming from the South. And I mean, it's just America. I'm rewatching, because it's been years since I watched it on YouTube. Gotta love YouTube. On YouTube is the History Channel, and I'm rewatching the whole series on American history, and it's fascinating. God, they did a really good job on this series.
Yeah, and to your point about England, my children, they're both adopted, and our son, we all did the DNA, and our son turned out to be a 5th cousin of my wife from Puerto Rico.
What? Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
And my daughter, she goes back, her birth parents, both sides of her birth parents came here in late 1600s, early 1700s. And I was able to trace her back to the dispensers. She's a distant dispenser cousin. So, it's interesting when you do, a lot of people don't want to do the DNA, but you can find out some really interesting things, like, your son is your 5th cousin.
Well, now that I've gotten more of my tree built out, although I'm still working on mine as well, watching that History Channel series again about America and the growth of, you look at it in a completely different way. You start looking at the different branches of your tree, and you start going, oh my gosh, oh wow, that is, it's kind of like you can relate, to the people that you're seeing in this, and the founding reasons, and the Declaration of Independence and all that. It just makes you feel good. Anyway.
Well, yeah, and you could go someplace and say, wow, my ancestor was there. Um, so let's talk about Genealogy TV.
Okay.
Um, there's so, I was looking at it, and there's so many facets of it. So rather than me try to explain it, why don't you tell everybody what's available on there and what they could do with Genealogy TV?
Sure. So if you're a beginner at Genealogy TV, I mean, beginner at genealogy, the Genealogy TV YouTube channel has a series for beginners. And I did, before I ever launched the the first video, I did 12 episodes, and they're all getting started, and they're in series. So it's kind of like, you know, basically it's kind of like What Rocks Your World is episode 1. What are you curious about? And that, because that's what drives everything that you do in genealogy. And so as you start getting farther into genealogy, you start hearing the words research question a lot, but basically that's the curiosity part. What is your research question? What is it you want to know? And then it goes into, starts the foundation of building skills. So really what Genealogy TV does is it is really skill-based. There are a few individual, like I do have one on Italian research. I have one on, a few specific countries, but for the most part, it's how to do research. And there's so many different aspects of how to do research, like how to take good research notes. I'm probably the queen of research notes because I keep telling everybody research notes is where it's at, and I could talk about that for an hour. And how to do research, how to find the records, how to, if you are lost and you go, I need to find a so-and-so kind of record, where do I go? All of that kind of stuff is on Genealogy TV. How to do DNA, how to use Ancestry. I love Ancestry. I love the platform. So there's probably more Ancestry videos on there than any other platform, but I do have my heritage, family search. I have a lot on family search, a little bit on Find My Past. There's just, kind of a variety of stuff up there. I don't get into the real deep genetic genealogy stuff. Basically, what my goal is, and my tagline is to help you go further, faster, and factually, which I'm very big on the factual part. But how to verify those records, how to make sure that the link and the branch of the tree that you're going down is actually accurate. So that's kind of what Genealogy TV is all about. And about halfway through, so I started that in the summer of 2018. And about halfway through 2020, I started creating handouts for the channel members. And so they have to be at the information access level. So like $10 a month, you get all the handouts that go with the videos. Not every video has a handout. For example, if I was doing an interview like you and I are doing today, there wouldn't be a handout for that. But if I'm showing you step-by-step instructions on how to group your DNA matches on Ancestry, there's a handout for that. People love the handouts. So that's kind of why I started doing the handouts, because I kept getting requests for them. That's Genealogy TV.
That's great information. And so let me ask you, what are the top 3 mistakes that people make when they're starting out genealogy?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, number 1 is importing from other trees without verification. That's probably the biggest mistake I see. So people are in a hurry to trace their family back to Italy or wherever, and they go, oh, 10 people said that person is in my family tree. That must be true. Import, ching, 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 ching. They just hit click, 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 and they hit import. So please don't do that. Please verify the records, go look and make your own decisions. So when we're looking at other member trees, what we really want to do is go, show me the money, show me the records. Where's your proof? Go find the sources within the other guy's tree and go, okay, now I believe you. Now I'll import it. Or wait a minute, you don't have any sources. I am not going to import that. Now, sometimes a strategy might be to import it, but mark it as unverified with tree tags at Ancestry, if you're using Ancestry, and mark it as unverified so that you can use the algorithms at Ancestry to help find those records. So that might be a different strategy, but I'm just saying, don't automatically import records from other members' trees. All right, so that's one. Let's see. Another one. That's probably the biggest one. The second one, I'm a big believer in keeping research notes. And so people go, Ancestry does that for me. I don't need to be keeping research notes. No, they don't do this for you. And the way I keep research notes is one set of research notes per ancestor. And you keep them in chronological order. So you put the date first and then the item. So it's a date, birth certificate. He was born in some details. He was born in such and such time, blah, 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 born in a log cabin, whatever you want to write. And a source citation. That's probably the third of the things that people make mistakes, is you put a source citation in there. Now, I would prefer you go, I found this on, a birth certificate. You would use a footnote if you can, but I use footnotes because it makes my notes clean, but you don't have to. It's a whole conversation on how to do footnotes, but you at least put something in there, where you found it, when you found. I like the 5 W's, right? Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Who it is, what it is, where it is, when it was, and how or why it matters in your family history research. Those are the kind of things that's quick and dirty. If you really want the building blocks for a good source citation, it's who, what it is, when, and when. 2 whens. When it was found and when the document was created. Where and where. 2 wheres. Where the document was and where you found it. So maybe you found it on Find a Grave, but the document came from Italy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So and then why it matters. So why really is not part of a professional source citation, but I like to include that information in the notes because it's like this document ties ancestor number 1 to ancestor number 2, and it proves whatever. That's why. So if you have all that information in your research notes, and that was just a birth certificate. So let's move on, to the marriage certificate or the residence or whatever. So you keep everything in chronological order. And the reason you do this is because you can put more detail into it than you could possibly put on Ancestry. You can format it in the way you want to put it. And you can then go, okay, what am I missing? Wait a minute, there's this big 20-year gap between 1880 and 1900. What am I going to do to find something? Where was this person? We were here in place number 1, and now we're in place number 2. How did he get from point A to point B? So now we got this 20-year gap. We need to go do some research. Maybe we find it in city directories, or we find it in tax records, or we find it in whatever. And so research notes, this is an interesting point, because I was at Roots Tech a month ago, whenever Roots Tech was, 2 months ago, maybe now. And I ran into 3 different people who said they've been following me on the YouTube channel, and they started keeping research notes because they know how much I harp on it. And they said, oh my gosh, it has changed the way I research. It has changed my world. I have broken down brick walls. I have found things I never saw before. And one of the other reasons why I talk about research notes so much is because what I do, and I use my microphone to do this, I go into Word and I'll look at a census record, for example. Census is easy, right? And I'll go, okay, John Doe, he's a white male. I'm dictating into Word everything I'm seeing. John Doe, he's a white male. He's 21 years old. He's single. He's a farmer. His mother was born in such and such, and his father was born in such and such. And I'm reading all this into because I don't want to type that much, right? But it's getting into my research notes. Now I can go back and clean up the little nuances that dictation didn't get right. But now just speaking it out loud, oh my gosh, you pay attention to details you never noticed before. You go, oh, wait a minute. He owns land. I need to go find the land records. Let me go see if I can find the deeds. Doing this stuff in your research notes, I'm telling you, will revolutionize the way you do research.
We'll be right back.
Experience Italy like never before, traveling with a scheduled group or create your own bespoke tour with friends with Phiítaly.com. Pack your bags and follow Phil. That's www.phiítaly.co. Yeah, that's fantastic. I never thought of that. And also, especially just, speaking it, because everybody has a tendency, at least I do anyway, has a tendency to start typing stuff. But I think you're right. As you're speaking it, think it changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah. You know what I do? I have this book I'm working on right now. This is not my book, but my ancestors are all over in this book. And so what I do is when I find that chapter that's on that person, so this is the book for Charles Booth and Descendants, and I will actually dictate into my research notes the paragraph out of this book, because how many times do we skim? We skim a book for surnames. We're looking for, we're like, where's my ancestor? I don't have time to read all this. I want to just find the ancestor. But when you stop and you read that paragraph out loud, then you go, oh my gosh, this little detail I never noticed before. And now I can go see if I can find that record. And this past weekend, I discovered a land bounty record for a widow, where the widow had gone and went to look for bounty record, or went to apply for bounty records like 30 years after her husband died. He had served in the War of 1812, and I didn't know that. News to me. So, again, it's one of those things that when you write those research notes, and especially if you read it into your, dictate it using there's a microphone usually on the top. If you're using Word, there's a microphone up there, but just about everything has dictation now. So
yeah.
And it's really gotten quite good.
And so now a lot of people, I get a lot of posts on my group. I want to research, but I don't know where to start.
Okay. So start with yourself. Right? I mean, that sounds stupid. People don't want to, like, I'm looking for my ancestors. I don't want to talk about myself. Yes, you do. So what you do is you go either get, if you can afford to buy a subscription to Ancestry, then that's what I would recommend. But I would start with, you can get a free account at Ancestry and then decide to pay for it later if you want. You can. There's a difference. There's a difference between a guest account and a free trial. So if you don't want to pay for it, use the guest account and just Google it. You can find it. Go, free guest account at Ancestry, and you'll get a link to it. But you sign up for Ancestry and just get the free account to start and start building your tree. You won't be able to search records under a free account, but you could certainly go over to familysearch.org and search for the same people over there and look for records over there. Now, they are fabulous for records over at Family Search, but they don't have quite as many as Ancestry does. So the other thing you can do also is the free trial. Now, one thing you need to know is if you're just experimenting and you're just getting started and you go, I don't know if I really want to invest in this, you could do a free trial and then turn it off. Your ancestors will still stay there. Your account will still stay there even if you stop paying for it. So don't think you have to delete the account or delete the tree. And then maybe 5 years later, you decide, I want to pick that up again. You can come back to your same account and pick up where you left off. So just know that if you stop paying for it, it doesn't go away on Ancestry. So what I profess a lot, though, is to start with yourself, then add your parents, then add your grandparents, but don't go too fast. Get everything you can on each person before you step backwards. Everything. Look for everything. So also go look at wikitree.com, and because some of your ancestors may be there. That's a collaborative tree similar to Family Search. So Family Search is a collaborative tree as well. One of the reasons why I say use Ancestry to build your tree, even if it's a free tree, because you have control over that tree. Whereas at Family Search, it's a collaborative tree. Everybody's working on it, and they may change things that you don't agree with. So just be mindful of that. WikiTree does the same thing, but the WikiTree has a little bit of an advantage, in my opinion, in that you cannot add an ancestor to the WikiTree without some sort of record or verification of the next link back. So the cool part about WikiTree is if you start something at WikiTree, which is free too, if you start something on WikiTree and you start building a tree, but you haven't connected to the World Collaborative Tree, once you do, it ripples all of these ancestors back, you know, from what people have done previously. Same thing at Family Search too. You may not be in the Family Search tree yet, but as you start to build it out, they might be suggesting, hey, you know, there's already a person in the tree that looks like this person that you're getting ready to add. Go investigate, and you might be able to just connect to that person instead of creating a duplicate. They're trying really hard. Everybody's trying really hard to not have duplicate ancestors.
You know, and I've used WikiTree before, but I never populated myself or my family like that. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, it's I would say it's not the most user-friendly
no, it's not.
site. It's because it just is very busy. But once you there's a video on Genealogy TV on how to get started on WikiTree. And I've got another one with some updates coming out, I don't know when, in a few weeks. But the WikiTree has some really unique properties. And one of the things that it has that nobody else has is it has this fan chart. So it's similar to the way Family Search looks with the fan chart. But one of the cool things about it is if you turn on colorize repeats is what it's called, it will colorize anybody that you have in your tree that is duplicated in different branches. For example, my great-grandparents were second cousins when they married. That means 2 more generations back, they have the same same grandparents, great-grandparents. I can't remember exactly how it works in my tree, but there's like when I hit the 7th generation, there's the same people in the tree in 2 different branches. So it colorizes those, and nobody else has that. And I didn't know it for the longest time because I was working on Ancestry all the time. And an Ancestry doesn't have the fan chart. It has, the pedigree chart. And so unless you drill in, because for me, it's the 7th generation back. So unless you drill into one back to the 7th generation and happen to hit the other line and go, wait a minute, I thought I just saw that guy on the other. And it took me a while to figure that out. I just hadn't noticed it before because there's no way to notice duplicating people in your tree.
Yeah, that's neat. Well, first I'm gonna watch it on Genealogy TV and learn how to do it, and then I'm gonna do it. And I have an interesting thing in my grandmother's family. When I was researching, I found a cousin on Facebook, Piomalo, and that's a very unique name in Italy because they originally were from Spain. And she was researching, and I said, we must be in the same family. But what I found was that my great-grandparents, when I found their chart or their ancestry lineage on this Libro di Oro, just above them, I found out there was a Piomalo that married a Caracciolo. And then there's my great-grandparents, Piomalo and Caracciolo. And what happened was my great-grandparents, their aunt and uncle, her aunt married his uncle the generation before. And so my cousin that I found in Italy, we're cousins from both families.
Oh, wow.
It's weird.
So yeah, you can have multiple relationships to people.
Yeah. But you start thinking about, when you find something like that, at least I do, you start thinking about, well, how did they meet? Maybe they met at a party. Maybe the families introduced them. Your mind starts going in all these different directions because there had to be some sort of connection to do that.
So that's a good tip for the beginners though, too, because one of the things that you need to do when you're trying to figure out that kind of problem is right place, right time, right?
Right.
You got to be thinking, okay, I had this, my mother was adopted, for example. So I was always trying to figure out, when I was trying to figure out her biological family, I was like, all right, who was in the right place at the right time, right? How did these two get together? How do they know each other?
Yeah.
And this was from Los Angeles, California. It was a big place even back then. So it's kind of like, there's got to be a nexus somewhere. It's a fun little thing to try and figure out, especially when all you have is records.
Well, yeah, and that happened with the next generation up, my second great grandparents. I found that my second great grandmother was Elisa Moore from Switzerland, from Lucerne, Switzerland. And she was living in Naples, married an Italian. And I was thinking to myself, well, why was this woman in Naples, this Swiss woman in Naples? And I figured, I'm never going to find this out. I'm never going to figure this out. Well, I was out there one day just Googling around, and I found the records for the Italian, not the Italian, it was in Italy yet, but the Neapolitan army in the 1850s. And I found a Bernardo Moore, captain in the Swiss Guard in Naples. And this book had the officers in the Italian, I keep saying Italian, the Neapolitan army. And then just below him, I found a lieutenant, Filippo Caracciolo, who was my second great grandfather. So again, well, he was a captain. He had a young daughter. He was a lieutenant. And that's how they wound up getting married. To take it the next step forward, I went out there one day and I said, give me the records for Lucerne, anything on Lucerne. And I found a website and they said, if you write us in English, German, or Italian about ancestry records, we'll answer. So I said, my great grandmother was Elisa Moore. Her father was Bernardo. They sent me the link to the ancestry charts for Lucerne going back to the 1500s, all handwritten.
Nice.
And I found her and I found him, and I was able to trace their families all the way back to the 1500s.
Nice. So another tip for the beginners is, the friends, associates, and neighbors. In your case, you found somebody on the same record. We always want to look at everybody, including the witnesses. This is a big deal. Witnesses are often family members. So we want to look, I document it all. I transcribe those records. Even the justice of the peace and all of those people, because if we research the family, not only the what I call the target ancestor, the person that I want to learn more about is my target ancestor, but I want to also research his or her siblings, spouses, children, everybody. I want to research them all. So that's the family, but also the friends, associates, and neighbors. We call that the fan club, right? So we want to research the fan club because a lot of times it's those neighbors that help us tie one record to another. So for those who are just getting started, this is a huge deal, because if you're going from, say, the 1880 census and now you're stepping backwards, you're always working backwards. You're now stepping back to the 1870 census. How do you know the guy in the 1870 census is your guy? Right?
Right.
So you have to look at the family. Well, what if the family has moved on? The kids have grown and they're now out of the house and they've married off. And how do you know this is your guy? Look at the neighbors, because if they haven't moved, then a lot of times you're going to see the Robinsons next door and you're going to see the Joneses on the other side. And what I do is I extract that data for 5 to 10 pages, depending on what I'm doing. I extract that data. I put it into Excel spreadsheet. There's a whole lesson on the YouTube channel about how to do this, but I'll extract 5 or 10 pages on either side of my ancestor and look and then search, because if you put it in Excel, you can search for it, search for surnames of other family members. And I almost always find them. It's super easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so one last thing I'd like to ask you is, how do you use social media, Facebook, to research people in your family?
So Facebook is where most of the genealogists are. There's a growing group of them on Instagram, but I think, as much as I'm not super crazy about the Facebook platform, it's
me
the
too.
best we have for genealogists in social media. So what you can do is you can go up there and search whatever you're interested in, but always put the word genealogy after it, because it's almost always going to be in the title of a group. So if you are doing Italian genealogy, search for that and see if you can find some groups to join. You can also search surnames. So I have 3 or 4 that I created. So I have the Henley surname group. I have the Madsen Jensen surname group. Those are the folks from Denmark. I have the Booth Simmons surname group, and you can make them private or you can make them public. But if you search them and you find them, and if they're private, just ask if you can join them. And a lot of times there's a little description in there too. It'll say, this is a private group just for my immediate family, so bug off. Or maybe the description's in there that says, this is the Henleys from Texas, which is not my clan, but I actually joined that group because we are connected. I figured out the connection between the North Carolina Henleys and the Texas Henleys. There is actually 1 or 2 links that are kind of remote, but ultimately we're all cousins, right? So you can then post these little stories. This is what I like to do. So I'm doing my research and I go, oh, this is interesting. The family might be interested in this. I'll grab that picture. Images sell, by the way. You got to have an image. It's even if it's a map. And we could talk about maps too, but map or an image of the ancestor or whatever, and just 2 or 3 paragraphs, and then put it up on your Facebook group. And boy, you will get some reactions from the family members that have joined that group because they're interested, right? And they may copy that. But here's the clue about that. Write it offline first, because you want to preserve that story in your family records. You do not want to just write it in Facebook and then, let's say tomorrow Facebook blows up and that family history is gone. So write it offline, then copy and paste it into the Facebook group. And that way you've preserved that history, because that little snippet, that little 3 or 4 paragraphs, maybe it's more, might become a little chapter in your next book. So, as well as your research notes, by the way. So you could, if you're really interested in creating a book, start using those little snippets. And then over time, you have so much material, you could publish it.
Well, yeah. And I think whether you write the book for your family or you write it to publish it, that's one thing I find very important. And I tell people all the time, especially, for those of us who are Italian, you can't lose those stories, especially from the old country. We're into the 4th or 5th generations here. And a lot of the things that I knew growing up are gone. And unless you write them down and preserve them, and the same thing with the photographs.
Yeah. One more point about social media, and I've done this so many times, is I've inherited a bunch of photographs that I don't know who these people are. I know which branch they come from.
Yeah.
But I will put that photograph up on Facebook and go, hey, does anybody know who this person is? Like, this really only works on Facebook groups. You wouldn't want to just I don't know, maybe you put it out on your public feed, but my friends don't care about genealogy. So I put it up on the family Facebook group, right? The genealogy groups. And I'll go, who is this person? And inevitably somebody has piped back and go, oh, that's Aunt Lorraine. Oh, really? What's Aunt Lorraine's full name? We're checking back and forth with each other. And sure enough, then I can be able to identify that photograph. Just a little tidbit on Ancestry. I was having an interview with Krista Cowan from Ancestry the other day, and I had posed this idea about a reverse lookup of images. Now you can do this on Google, but Ancestry would be great. And I said, what if you could take a photograph and upload it to Facebook, an unidentified ancestor? And then what if some distant cousin has uploaded that same photograph with identification? What if we could marry those together? Like Ancestry goes, oh, this image is the same as this image, and this one's identified. Bingo. I think they're working on that. I think they like that idea. So I don't know. We'll see.
That would be fantastic. And I interviewed Kate Kelly, I guess about a month ago now. And she's the photo angel, and she goes to all of these antique places and finds old photographs and then reunites them with their family.
Does the research. Yeah, that's
that
fun.
is just, I mean, it's just amazing that she does this. She's such a sweet person.
I did that here locally with a marriage record they found in a thrift shop. Another episode on the YouTube channel. But yeah, it's fun. This marriage record, I think, was from the late 1800s, and it was found inside of a Bible or something. I forget what it was. It was behind a picture frame. That's what it was. They found it behind a picture frame, and they didn't know anything about it. And so I was able to do the research, find the woman, and reached out to her through Facebook and said, "Hey, is this your ancestor?" And she's like, "Oh my gosh, yes." And she got so excited. It was a really good episode.
I have the marriage. I guess it's more of an announcement than a marriage record from my great grandfathers on my father's side, Italy Phiítaly, and his wife was Julia Princi, and it's 34 pages long. And I was like, why is this thing 34 pages long? And her father was an attorney in Italy in the 1860s or whatever it was, 1840s. And it's this humongous thing that's got everything in the kitchen sink in there. It's an incredible record.
Cool. That's it's like wills. Wills have so much information in them.
Yeah, and I found that from a fourth great grandparent in Italy, and it wasn't necessarily will. It's the challenge to a will.
Look for probate records, even if you don't think your ancestor wrote a will, even if they're like illiterate. Look for probate records, because if they owned land, there's a probate package out there somewhere, probably at the state archives.
Yeah, that's a good point. So before we go, how do people find you? How do they find Genealogy TV?
YouTube.com/genealogy TV, or you can go to genealogytv.org. And that's the website. And then the academy is genealogytv.org/academy. So.
Well, that's fantastic. And great insight for anybody beginning. Check out Genealogy TV. I appreciate you taking the time, Connie.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Bob Sorrentino, just letting you know that my new book, Farmers and Nobles, is now available for sale on www.italiangenealogy.blog/Farmers and Nobles, or you can find the link in the podcast notes. Thanks for listening.